Hi kids, welcome back. We're learning about kites in this lesson. We've learned about the history of kites. We've learned about how kites have spread out all over the world. And we've seen how people use kites today in shows. There's many different styles and sizes and colors of kites. Well, let's read some more about kites in Japan. In Japan, there are kite shows on special days. Right? There are so many Japanese people here, and they're having a kite show. Kite shows in Japan began a long time ago. So kite shows have a long history in Japan. Of course, Japan is right next to China, so the idea of kites probably went to Japan very early, and also to Korea, of course. This little fish is interesting because it's not really a fish. It looks like a kite. Maybe this is a type of Japanese kite, right? But a kite show in Japan, they began a long time ago. There is a story about a famous event and a famous tradition for kites in Japan. And we have the title of the book and of this chapter, A Kite Day, a special day for kites. What happened? Let's read. There was once a king. Here we have once again. Again, we know that means a long time ago. There was once a king. Okay, a long time ago in Japan, there was a king. He lived in Japan. The king had a baby boy, right? A prince. The king had a baby boy. That was the prince, right? He was very proud. The king, not the boy. The boy was still a baby. The king was very proud. The king, he flew a kite over his city. So the king had a baby boy. The king was very happy and very proud. He wanted to tell everybody, yay, I had a boy, right? It's your new prince. So he flew a kite over the city to announce, to tell everybody, I had a boy, yay, okay? The kite had the name of his baby boy on it. So this is the name of the baby boy. And look at the kite. It looks like a baby boy, right? Very interesting. So people could see the kite and they're like, oh, look, it's a baby boy. Yay, the king had a baby boy. And they can read the name of the baby boy on the kite. So it's a way for the king to announce to his people, here, this is my son. He will be your future king. This is news, okay? All the people who lived nearby could see it. So that's a very good story. Today, Japanese people fly kites to mark the same baby's birthday. The same baby's birthday. So it's like this baby became very famous because his father flew a kite on his birthday. And the boy is so famous. Of course, he became king later on, but it's such a famous story, such a tradition, that people in Japan still fly kites on that day, right, on the anniversary of that day, to celebrate that same baby boy's birth, right? It's the same baby boy, not somebody else. Not to fly a kite when they have a son, when a mother or father has a son, but this prince who lived a long time ago. That's very interesting. That's an interesting tradition. Okay. Kites for racing. People also use kites in sports, right? They're very exciting, right? And you can use them in sports. This looks really cool. This is a really cool sport. I would like to do this someday. Kites are fixed to skis, right? So skis, that's not here. Skis are like when you're on snow, right? If you live in an area where there's no mountains, right, you can't ski down. Let's say it's all flat. There's lots of snow, but how can you ski? Well, put your skis on, have a big kite, and the kite can pull you across the flat snow, right? So kites are fixed to skis. They can be fixed to surfboards and kayaks too, right? Now that's what these guys are doing. They're surfing in the ocean, but they're using a kite because the kite makes them go faster, and they can surf on the ocean on their surfboard, right? You can also use a kayak. A kayak is a small boat. One person, maybe two, but usually one person sits in a very small boat, It's a very narrow boat, and you usually use a paddle, right? Use a paddle, and you can go fast in the water. Well, if you have a kite, you have wind power. Now you can use that kite, and you can steer it in the wind, and you can make your small boat go where you want to. So you could use a kite with your kayak, and a kayak is a small boat. So this is a beach where people race with kites, and they have a race, and you can see the many different kites. They're very big, they're simple. They just need to catch the wind. They're simple kites, but they're very strong, and you have to have a lot of strength to hold on to it, because that's a lot of power pulling away from you. But you hold on to it, and if you're on a surfboard, the power pulls you along the water. That sounds really cool, doesn't it? That's why someday I would like to try that. That sounds great. Sounds like a lot of fun. Okay. Look at this guy. That's exactly what he's doing. Check that out. Isn't that fun? Doesn't that look fun? That looks great. His feet are in the surfboard here. They're holding on. He's got something he puts his feet into so it doesn't slip, right? And there's the kite. He's holding on to it, and he can steer. He can choose. He wants to go over here. He wants to go over there. He can steer and control where he goes on the surfboard. That's great. That's really awesome. Looks really fun. Okay. Kites have a long history, as we saw. This is like review. They have a long history. The first kite was in China a long time ago. A farmer invented or discovered how kites can work. So they have a very long history. They have been used for many things. Have been used. That means that they have been used for a very long time. And they're used for many things, many different things. So kites have been used for a long time, and it's continually, right? No, they didn't stop using kites. Kites have been used. They started to be used a long time ago, maybe thousands of years ago, and they continue to be used. They have been used. So have been used means for a very long time. They are continually used. So we use them for lots of different things. What did we see? We saw to announce the birth of a baby prince, right? We saw that they are used for shows, to have contests. Who has the best kite, right? They're used for fun, just having fun and flying a kite on a windy day. So these are many different things that kites are used for. Now we have a question. What do you think kite flying will be used for in the future? Mire, right? In the future, 100 years from now, how will people use kites, right? That's an interesting thing to think about. Think about that yourself. What other things can you use a kite for? Maybe you can invent a new way to use a kite. Because, of course, people didn't use this, 100 years ago. This is very new, right? So what other new things might people use kites for in the future? Can kites be used to make energy? Do you think kites will be used to make electricity for your homes? Maybe. We don't know. We'll have to see what the future holds. Maybe you'll come up with a great idea on how to use kites. Maybe it will be for sports, maybe it'll be for fun, or maybe it will be something useful like making energy. Okay, well that's interesting thing to think about. Okay, before we go, we want to talk about the index, right? The index tells us about important subjects that we learned in the book, and it tells us what page we can find those subjects. So if we forget or we want to remember something, we can just look up the subject and we can go right back to that page and read about it again. We learned about China on pages 4 and 8. Remember, we learned about China. China was the place where kites were invented. And also Marco Polo went to China and learned how to use kites. Frames are a part of the kite. Also sails are a part of the kite. We can see frames and sails. Of course, they're both on the same page. We talked about parts of a kite on page 6. If you want to know about kites in Japan, if you want to remember though what we learned about it, go to page 11 or 13. 11 to 13 actually. 11 to 13, 11, 12, and 13. You can read again about how kites were used in Japan. If you want to read again about Marco Polo, his information is on pages 8 and 9. And if you want to read about kite shows, if you want to remember about that, that's pages 11 and pages 10 and 11. Pages 10 and 11. If you want to know about silk and kites, that's on page 3. And finally, sports. How are kites used in sports? Take a look at page 14. Okay, so very interesting information about kites. Makes me want to go out and learn how to surf and use a kite. That's really interesting. And maybe it makes you want to learn how to make a kite and go outside and fly it. You have some good tips for flying a kite. You can also buy a kite at a toy store. You can make a kite or fly a kite. But whatever you do, have fun. And remember, be careful. Use an open area. Keep your kite away from trees and especially power cables. And of course, especially away from roads and cars so you don't get distracted. Okay? So have fun. Always have fun, but be safe. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.